Welcome to the Franchise Woman Podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles. I'm here with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, friend, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. So, Tracy, we have a very fun guest today that both of us can super relate to, and I'm sure our audience can too. Julie DeLucca-Collins is the force behind Go Confidently Services and the Casa de Confidence Podcast, which has been recognized by Good Pods as a top 10 podcast on motivation. And it reaches listeners in 106 countries. Her book, Confident You, Simple Habits to Live the Life You Have Imagined, received International Impact Book Award. She brings a heartfelt perspective as first-generation Salvadorian American who's built her own path to the C-suite and now helps women do the same with practical frameworks and genuine encouragement. Julie's expertise, of course, stretches beyond just confidence and business strategy. She really helps a lot of women that are in kind of that midlife transition, looking for ways that they can express themselves, build businesses, and of course, have an impact on their communities. So, Julie, welcome to the show.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for having me. I am sitting here and I am sure you know how this feels. I'm listening to you thinking, who are they talking about?
This woman.
Who is that?
Yeah, from C-suite to confidence builder, confidence.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be a fun podcast when I saw your red microphone.
Well, very fun. Yeah. If it's not fun, why not? Why are we doing it, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Got to make it fun. So tell us, how did you get into all this fun? What is the backstory of how you built this incredible business?
Well, there's two defining moments. And I think that the more that I get asked this question, the more that I really pinpointed to these two moments. Number one, it's a moment when I was in my mid-20s and my mom had just turned 50, early 50s, and she was laid off. And one of the things that I remember she went through and would often say is like, who's going to hire me? I'm old. They want the young woman. They want the young, pretty girl. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, you're so intelligent, highly qualified, gifted, educated, traveled. And of course people need you. And of course, that's not necessarily what, as women, right, we tend to think. And I know that was one of the things that I wanted to redefine for myself, that I wanted to, no matter what age I was, that I was going to not let that number define what I did. That was one of the main things. Now, as I grew through my corporate career, I started with teaching, and then I went to work for a national educational company, a franchise. And I really loved the systems within the franchise and climbed that corporate ladder within that organization. And there was a moment, eventually I left them and I went to another organization. But in that second organization, I finally, passed the VP level, went into the C-suite, and there were two other women who were in the executive level within the organization. And I remember we sat at a very important meeting. We were going through a big transition in the organization, and we sat around the conference room table. And it was that moment where I walked into the room, sat at the table, and the other two, one who was in her 30s and another one who was almost 60, both of them were apprehensive and unsure about stepping into the table. And they sat in the background. And I thought, no, that's not how it works. And I know that for many times, I don't always have it together. I don't always feel the inadequacy, right? I don't always feel like I belong, and that inadequacy is so normal. But I step up to the mic, I come to the table, and I want others to be able to do that as well. So those are the two defining moments that kind of had led me to where I am today.
What a beautiful story. As you're talking about those two young women at that conference table, I can envision that. I've sat at that table. I've been one of those young women that wouldn't speak up and was afraid my opinion wasn't, important enough, or I wasn't important enough. So I think your mission, your purpose is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I want to talk about it a little bit more. Do you think that this has become a purpose for you, a mission for you?
Yeah.
And how does that, for any woman, combine with confidence? Do you think someone that feels like they are on purpose or they have a mission are more confident, or is it about the same, whether you feel like you're on purpose or not?
So, one of the biggest things that I like to look at is, and I think that from the very beginning, right? I feel that to those who have been given gifts, and sometimes we don't even know what our gifts are, right? But I was brought up by a very strong woman. My grandmother always said, to those much given, much is expected, right? And I knew that it was charged on me to give back because I knew something or had something and could give. But I also think that for me, I had to see the evidence that there was capability within me to do that, to then be able to say, hey, I've done it. Let me show you imperfectly, right, how I got here, and maybe give you that easy pass or that elevator that can help you not climb the steps necessarily. So I know that that's been really big. And often, there's the term ikigai, right, from the Japanese that refers to what we are good at, what we are passionate about, and what we can get paid for, right? And that intersection is really what I think I have found for myself, but it didn't happen overnight. It came from practice, from failure, and it came from really a lot of self-reflection as well.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that whole concept of ikigai. I forget that it has that Japanese name. Yeah. Um, but I want to just reel it back for a second because just to clarify something, I don't think that it was two younger women. I think you said one was 60 years old
Sure. Yep. Yep.
Oh my
and
gosh, I missed that.
No, you're good,
one
Tracy.
was 60. So that brings in your point earlier when we were
Oh,
having a conversation, Rebecca, and you said, what about imposter syndrome?
yeah.
So imposter syndrome runs at any age, right?
Oh,
So what
yeah.
is your take on that, Julie?
Yeah, well, that imposter syndrome, it's something that I don't want people to become so accustomed to hearing the phrase, but I want them
Mhm.
to know that it is, number one, a normal reaction from our brain. Our brain is wired to protect us. And when we see somebody else, immediately we're going to go into the comparison. And that imposter syndrome, it's not just because we have more wisdom, just because we've accomplished more, just because maybe we're further along, doesn't mean that it's going to go away. But what needs to happen is remind ourselves that, oh, wait a minute, I'm feeling that way. And
Yeah.
then kind of begin to rewrite the story, because we're never going to turn that off. We're never, and I think that that's one of the things, like with this, with my colleague, and I think of this woman who, beautiful inside and out, traveled the world as well. Here's someone who was one of the first women traders in Wall Street with her Series 7, and she still felt like she didn't belong. She felt like, who am I to, lean in?
Is it your mom?
No, this was someone that I worked with
Someone
at
else.
at that
Okay.
company, that 60-year-old woman, and
Oh,
again, someone who, from the outside, everybody would think, oh my goodness, look at this great person, but
right.
she
Wow.
herself did not see herself at the table, and that's that part of imposter syndrome. What am I doing here? And it requires noticing, and then deciding how you want to reframe that for yourself.
So it sounds like it's a recipe,
Hmm.
meaning confidence is having skills that you trust that you can,
Hmm.
apply, but it's also um, a mental thing,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
you may know you have those skills, but if you don't recognize the value that brings to
Hmm.
the world, then you're sitting on these skills that are being unappreciated, etc.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that I love to say is confidence is a strategy. Confidence is not a feeling. And most of us are brought to believe that, hey, I can be confident. I can stand on power pose and I'm going to feel that. And to some extent, you could. And yes, there is a level of confidence that comes a little bit innate in me. I'm an extrovert. I'm a firstborn. And I'm very driven. So that does create a level of confidence, but it doesn't mean that I always feel confident. What has
Right.
cemented for me and has allowed me to build confidence is the consistent action that gives me traction, is the showing up even when I'm not motivated, is the showing up even when I don't have the evidence yet, right? That I'm doing it. But the more that I put in the reps, the more that I can look back and say, oh, wait a minute, it's
Mhm.
adding up. Okay, it's coming along. And then that allows me to then know that I can continue to show up better and I am making progress. And that's where a lot of people also get stuck, ladies. They think that, oh, I'm doing it, but I'm not seeing the result. You cannot focus on what's ahead. You have to go back and give yourself credit for what's behind you, because then that's when you're going to see your competency. And that's the competency that gives you the evidence to know that, okay, I'm better. I'm doing it and I can continue to do this.
So you got to
That's
look.
really well said.
It
Yeah.
is. It's like you got to be able to acknowledge where
Mhm.
you came from and where you are. It's like that gives you energy to
Oh,
continue
for
on.
sure.
Because if you're just comparing yourself today to 3 hours ago, you may not see a whole lot of progress. But if you're looking at 6 months, a
Mhm.
year ago, you'll definitely see that growth and how one has
Yeah.
applied themselves to get better and better at what they're
Sure. And
doing.
I want to give you a really clear example of how this kind of works that may really resonate with your listeners. We're in January. I don't know when this is coming out, but most people have this big idea that maybe they want to get fit. And when I started in this health journey, started going to the gym, and I would look at the treadmill and I knew that I could walk on the treadmill, right? But it wasn't until, and I had a trainer, he made me start running on the treadmill, that I began to gain the confidence that I was becoming a runner, right? But that didn't happen on the first day. That happened
Oh,
after multiple times of showing up. And then I can the next time. And I remember just walking into the treadmill without the trainer there. And then all of a sudden I started to speed up and I thought, oh, I'm choosing this because I know I can do it. I've done it before. But I would have never chosen that had I not taken that first scary
mhm,
step
mhm.
and built to it.
See, I love that you said that confidence is a strategy because then also you just said about something being a choice, and it seems like like your theory is confidence is a choice, and then you continue to implement it, and
That's
then
right.
it continues to build and grow.
100%. And I think that, you gotta think all of us are gonna enter this world being beginners. None of us comes in with just expertise in
Yeah.
anything. We are going to become better, more well versed by the fact that we begin and practice it. But the beginning is the hard part, is the one thing that we have to overcome. And once we get started, we can really rely on that momentum.
I would think also, Julie, that when we go into something new, we don't always know if we can do it. You knew
Right.
you could walk on the treadmill.
Sure.
You didn't see yourself as a marathon
Never.
runner,
Never.
but after a period of time, you saw yourself as a runner, right?
Hmm.
So we all have that self-doubt, but
Right.
confidence builds by application.
Right.
So let me ask you, um, about the mind part of
Mm.
that. How do we rewire our minds? You've given us the strategy by
Hmm.
just doing it and recognizing where we came from. What about the mind and the yada yada that we got going on
Yeah.
there?
So you know what? This is a little bit of what I really like to share is we need to, number one, bring that awareness, right? That's the first step in really being able to work with your mind. A lot of times we're not even aware of what we're saying to ourselves. We are probably the meanest people to our own selves than anybody else. And knowing that, hey, I am telling myself I fill in the blank, right? So that number one is going to kind of chip at your confidence because you are telling yourself, I'm not good enough and I don't, who am I to be doing this? And it's not that we're going to stop the the music, right? If think of it as those tapes are running in the background all the time. There's nothing we can do to turn those off. Those are wired in. It's like jukebox that keeps playing. We're not going to be able to unplug it. But what we can do is we can choose another song, right? And those are the things that if we are aware that I'm telling myself that I'm not good enough, then I can say, you know what? I am learning to be better at is and it's a thought that you begin to keep in a ladder system, right? You can't go from I can to I did. You go from I can to, well, I'm going to try. Oh, I'm the person who tries. And then when you begin to embody the identity that you want to have through repeating to yourself what you want to become, right? Who am I? And redefining that with awareness and then practice and then actually doing the work, that's when you start to create this new neural pathways and those, hardly traveled path in which you saw yourself being successful or doing the thing become the more traveled roads for your neural pathways in your brain, right? But it really is, it all always begins with the awareness is really finding like, what am I saying to myself? And once you say it again, it's not so much trying to change it right away, but it's just saying, oh, I'm telling myself a story or I'm not a runner yet. Add the yet to it. Something so simple that it can really begin to make a difference.
Rebecca, she's speaking your language.
She's definitely speaking my
Pathway
language.
is speaking your
Hey,
language.
Julie, as you were talking, I could feel the stress in my body releasing because I do think we have high aspirations for us or wishful thinking or dialogue that says, oh, you're too old or you're too this or, you don't have that skill. But you broke it down where it's like, today, take a step. Just tell yourself a different story. Play a different piece of music. When you said music, I saw the jukebox, right? And I have songs in my head that I don't want to be playing anymore.
Right.
I like a different song. So literally selecting a different song in your head. For some reason that worked for me, Julie, when I saw it as music rather than yada yada, self-talk, self-doubt,
Sure.
pessimism, all that. It's just a song playing in your head.
Yeah.
Hit the jukebox, play another song, chop it down into smaller pieces.
Yeah.
Thank you for making that.
You're welcome. And again, and here's what I want to just make sure that your listeners know, right? These songs that you're playing, they're not yours. They're the songs that someone gave you when you were a child, right? They're that 45. I'm really dating myself. They're like little 45 that someone said, hey, here you go. Play this. This is, and again, we carry them with us. And it doesn't mean that, someone meant to hurt us or someone meant to define us in any way, right? Our brain of a child was trying to protect us for whatever thing. And we created these tapes that we play ongoing, but we can make the decision. And by the way, I had a story about, and again, December 31st, I woke up and I let my dogs out. I'm drinking my cup of coffee. I'm the first one up in the house. And I thought, oh, another year. I didn't accomplish anything really this year. And then all of a sudden I had to, Julie, you just released a new book.
Wow.
You actually, and it's not that I wrote it because I'm not going to say easy, but I could have had a lot of control over doing that. But this was a collaboration with other women. So that took a lot of wrangling in my part to be able to do that. And I did that. But our first instinct is not to give ourselves credit. So that pause, taking the pause and saying, "Oh, is that true?" That's really what we need to do.
Oh, so important. So, can you share with us how I understand you have two businesses, the one that you started and then one with your husband. Can you bridge that for us?
Sure. So I never intended to start a business with my husband. My husband loves what he does. He works in aerospace for his real, he calls this real job. But what happened was when the beginning of the pandemic rolled about, I was offered a separation package. The company that I worked for was hit incredibly hard. We were in education, and with school shutting down, it was a tough choice. And I took it because I had already been working in leadership programs in the colleges and universities here in Connecticut. And I knew that eventually, in some future, I was going to go on my own. And that's when I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to go out on my own. So I started Go Confidently Services, which the main aim was to help women build the confidence, whether it be as entrepreneurs or maybe women in leadership in the boardroom, right? How do you get to that next level and create that consistent action that gives you the traction for your life, for your business, etc. And at the same time that I launched my business, that was March. In April, I had a very big milestone birthday coming up. And I've been planning a big birthday party. So excited that, again, because as I shared earlier, my experience had been how my mom had defined herself when she hit her 50s. And I knew that I was not going to do that. And I wanted to celebrate turning 50. And we know what happened in April 2020. Now, my husband saw the writing on the wall, and he knew that, wow, I have this extrovert wife who just changed jobs, is launching a business, and now she's not going to get her birthday party that she's been planning for months. So within his wisdom, he got me podcasting equipment. He said, hey, you've been talking about doing a podcast for a long time. I think you should start one. And the first thing that I said to myself was like, what? I don't know if I could do that. And he said, don't worry about the tech. I will do the tech. You do the talking. And I said, okay, well, that's easy enough. So we started our podcast, Casa de Confidence. Now, he is my little sidekick co-host, and I do the interviews or the solo shows. But it really made it so easy. And it was so great to be able to then get the momentum and build. And as the business grew and I had clients working with me, some of them would say, hey, I have a podcast and I really hate the tech. Can your husband help me? And then I had another client that said, I want to launch a podcast and I see that you've built systems. Can you and your husband help me launch? And of course, my husband, he is a giver. And he said, yeah, sure, I'll help. And we started to just work with 1, 2, 3. And somewhere along the line, the business person in me said, wait a minute. No, we need to charge accordingly. There is a demand here.
That's right.
And number two, we need to systematize this because it's not just, and by the way, this is kind of the ongoing work, right? And then the past year, that's really what we have done is really systematize. And I realized that it's 2 separate businesses, Go Confidently Services and Casa de Confidence Productions, which by the way, Casa de Confidence Media Productions, because it was the Casa de Confidence that produced the book. So now, and a lot of the women who we work with the book have podcasts, have public thought leadership platforms, and really our goal. And this is again just how my husband helped to set the stage to be able to give me a platform to share what I do. He is very committed to doing that in the same way for other entrepreneurs. And yes, mainly women. We have a couple cool dudes like my husband, but really our goal is to make it easy for individuals with a message, a mission, and a passion to be able to do what they do best, right?
Nice.
and then take care of the other stuff that sometimes that robs people of their confidence. The fact that they want to, they know they can, and they can do it. But at the end of the day, you have to choose what is easier, right? So if we can take that burden away, that's really what we're committed to doing.
Yeah.
What amazes me each time we talk, Julie, is how you are both good at pulling out of these women what their mission, their purpose is, and what the business should be, and kind of looking at it from a strategic perspective. Then you help align their belief systems and their mental process and the disciplines and the strategies necessary to get there, including podcasting could be part of a strategy of growing a business. So this is a unique talent that you have because many consultants, many coaches have that big picture, but you have the whole puzzle where you can put all these pieces together to help these women get the results that they want. So, number one, I want to applaud you
Thank you.
in
So
that
kind.
way. And I'm guessing some of your time in the world of franchising had you thinking more systematically.
100%, 100%. And Rebecca, I want to tell you a quick story. I don't think I've ever shared this with many people, but when I transitioned from being someone that worked in one of the corporate centers, the system in one of the corporate owned centers, to actually they brought me in to go into the training department. And it just so happened right time, right place. And I ended up being on loan to the business development, the VP of business development. Eventually, that started a whole new business line for the organization. And by the time, I was leading, I ended up leading that whole new division. Now, we were on our way to DC with both of the founders of the company again, and it was in the early stages, and both of them have been incredible mentors to me. And Dr. Huntington said, we are going to make this into a separate thing. And you've been doing this with some of our franchisees. You've been doing this with our corporate centers. Now we need to create the processes. The processes. And on the whole drive down to DC from New Jersey, he had me write out, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And as we started to then make that into this whole new division, I realized that in order for things to be replicatable, that we needed to systematize, and in creating those systems, it was also going to save time and create the individual roles that are needed to be able to sustain a business, right? Because a lot of times, and if you think about it, I think we have this we're the doers, we're the managers, we're the big thinkers, and not everybody is the big thinker. But if you want to grow a business and you want to be the person who's maybe coaching clients, then you're going to need to have someone in your corner who's a big thinker and can say, oh, okay, in 10 miles, this might be the obstacle, or this is something that we need to remedy now. We don't have someone that is actually taking care of this thing, right? And that's really needed. And for me, I feel that that's really where many women entrepreneurs, right? They know that they need to hire a VA, but they may not know what the strategy is. Or maybe they have a strategy, but they don't even know how to implement it. And that's really what we want to be able to create for them is remove the obstacles.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, when you're not growing, when you're not reaching those milestones or those goals that you have for yourself, and because you have an obstacle, you're not going to blame the obstacle. You're going to blame yourself, right? And then that's going to chip away your confidence once again.
That is so interesting. I really can relate to so many people, like including myself at times. There have been times when I wanted to launch something, but it was the lack of knowledge in the technology area that stopped me from moving forward. I mean, I have experienced that myself. I'm sure there are so many women out there. So it sounds like you and your husband fill in the gaps of that. And it's amazing because you both bring you bring your leadership and your education experience. and he brings his technical know-how. It's just such a winning team.
Yeah, well, it's really fun to be able to work together because we really bring out the best in each other, and we also test each other in a way that it's not perfection, and it's not, and not to say that we don't disagree, because we're two different people, but we've learned to, one, have the candid conversations that help us then move forward, and also help us, I'll speak for myself. It helps me to say, oh, I could be that slave driver. I need to back off, right? And it makes me a better operator because I can see that it's not just my perspective on it, right? There's got to be another side to the coin too.
Let's level up from that.
Level up.
Let's level up.
Love that.
Level up.
Because we're a solopreneur, right? Then we realize, oh, this wonderful husband of mine has all these fabulous talents. Let's partner up. Let's create another business. And that took growth even more. Both businesses grew. And then you were talking about the trip from New Jersey, where you learned about systematizing, knowing that relationships, partnerships is really a growth multiplier, right? Yeah. Whether that's franchising or even things like your book. This book had a lot of impact from other women. And that's a whole different mindset where you're juggling all of these relationships, getting everyone on the same page for a particular outcome. Your husband's one thing, but now you're dealing with a bunch. Tell us about that and how we as solopreneurs or partners or whatever can level up to that next level that you did.
Well, one of the first things that I typically tell my clients is you got to make friends with the boring. That's what it is. You have to make friends with the boring. That means that, and I went through coaching certification, Tiny Habits coaching certification with Dr. BJ Fogg. So I'm a big fan of habits. Habits are the things that take up the slack for me when my motivation is somewhere out to lunch. And really, that's the boring. The habits sometimes are the boring. And as entrepreneurs, and I am not immune to this, we are going to always go after the old shiny. We are always going to see that new opportunity, that new thing. And we're like, oh my God, I should do that. Oh, I need to implement that. And eventually, right? But if we've made friends with the boring, then we are going to be, so I'll give you an example. We're in January and I haven't done this yet for my business and for myself, but I really like to plan out. What are my goals for the year? Break them down into my goals for the next 12 weeks. And from those goals, and I have 4 or 5, depending on what they are, 4 goals, I then create, they're not, oh, I'm going to make X amount of money. That's not the goal. The goal is, what is the action-oriented goal? And then what is the activity that gets me to that action, right? So building the activities so that knowing my big picture, my short-term picture, and then my daily picture is what creates my boring for the week. So what do? On a Monday, I sit down, I look at what I'm supposed to be doing, my goals, and then I plan out, okay, where in the calendar do I have that activity? Oh, wait a minute, the week ended, I'm going to review and be boring. And well, look, did I do what I said I was going to do? Right? Yeah. Numbers, a track number is going to grow. And a lot of individuals don't have that they're afraid of the numbers. And a number is not good or bad. We cannot assign, right, a role to the number. Numbers are just data. They're just neutral. And I think that the more that we incorporate that into the work that we do daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, quarterly, whatever it is, it's going to help you stay on track and then do the adjustments as you're going along.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I feel so motivated.
And hire people to fill spots that are
100%.
not necessarily, because we can't do it all alone. If we're going to scale to that level, we can't do it all alone.
And even today, and I'll tell you, we have someone that has worked with us for almost a year now. She's in the social media department. She helps us not only for our clients, but for the organization. And she is a wonderful woman, a young woman who is going to school as well. And now her bandwidth is something has to give, and obviously the job has to give because school is important. So it would have been so easy for the next 2 weeks for me to kind of just say, "Oh, well, I can do that. I'll help the clients. I'll do it for them." For as painful as it was, I had to hire someone. And of course, I already had someone who I knew, and we have an organization that we partner with. But this is where many entrepreneurs and business owners, they know they have to hire. They may know who they want to hire, but then they have to make the time to explain to the new person how to do it. And
Yeah.
this is why you want to have your operational procedures and you want to have your systems in place so that, and not that my systems are perfect, but it was so easy to have a conversation with this person and say, okay, this is my flow. This is the workflow. This is how we do it. And here's a little video that shows you. And here's where we have all this, everything lives. But the training of this onboarding of this person didn't take forever. And a lot of times we'll tell ourselves, oh, it's easier if I do it myself than explain to somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
Right? That happened. I still do that.
Me too.
But when you're saying yes to doing it, then you're saying no to something else. That's really the key, right? Is not only having the things in place, and I didn't put processes in place from day one. I've worked on adding them. I worked on creating them. And every time, by the way, I this is probably the third person that has come along in a 5-year period. And the first person that came along, she still works with us, but she moved to another role within what we do. The second person came along and she took those processes and made them her own and helped with creating better systems. And now that we're moving on, then this person is learning the systems from the first and the second, and it's learning the system that's at work. And when she's comfortable enough, then she can come back and say, hey, you know what? There's a better way of doing it. There's a faster way. But we have to start from having those systems in place.
I love that because I work with a lot of middle managers in organizations that were put in their position because they did a good job, but they're first learning how to be managers.
Yeah.
And this reminds me of how I'm always reminding them, delegate, and make that bridge into the strategy of it. But I never thought of it the way you're saying it from the perspective of the entrepreneur who also has to make that bridge from the doing and the tedious actions, the daily actions, into more of that high level strategy. That's really good stuff.
Well, absolutely. And I will say for anyone who's listening who says, well, you know, they're not going to do it like me, or they're not going to, you're not the only person. We've just went through this. The one thing that's going to prevent you from growing, and we've been there as a team with my husband, the one thing that will prevent you from growing and scaling is thinking that you can do it all and have to do it all because you're saving money. And listen, what entrepreneur doesn't want to save money? I want to save money, right? But at the end of the day, it may be a short investment that gives you the flexibility and the bandwidth to grow.
I love this conversation for a million reasons.
Yeah.
I got off a call today with one of my software developers, and I was honest with him, and I said, you can't leave. I am so dependent on you. You must promise me you're going to be with me forever. And he said, Rebecca, I'm going to stay with you forever. However, if I get hit by a bus, everything is so well documented that you could bring a software developer in, and within just a few days, they would know exactly what's going on. Wow. And I can tell you the stress just went away, that he was of right mind to document and systematize everything, that if something did happen to him, somebody else could step in. What a beautiful thing. I want to backtrack, and we're kind of coming up on the hour. I know Tracy and I could talk for 6 hours with you.
I could be here all day too.
I want to go back to something you said earlier. about what was the saying? Something about for everyone who much is given, for him much will be required, which by the way is Luke 12:48 in the scriptures. So this was part of your mindset. This is what you grew up and understood. How does that still affect you today? And how do you share that with others that you've been given these talents, you've been given this, therefore much is going to be required of you in your business, in your life?
Sure. For me, I think that service is again one of the values that I've had from a very early age.
Mm-hmm.
And in my journey as an entrepreneur, I don't see it necessarily as a job, right?
Yeah.
It's ingrained into the value system that I have. And I think that for so many of us, if our values are not aligned with the work that we do, then there's going to be a disconnect.
Yes.
Do I do it perfectly? Do I always show up? Do I sometimes, want to pull my hair out? Of course. But at the end of the day, I go back to why is this important? Why do I want to share what I do and how? So if I see an entrepreneur, and by the way, I love it when people will say, "Hey, Julie, how do you do that?" I can't work with a coach right now. I'm not looking for you to work with a coach. Just ask me, I'll tell you. Because if
Yeah.
I can help you save time, then what's going to happen is that you're going to have the ability to then go and support somebody else. And then we're creating a ripple effect because I'm not going to be able to change the world. I'm going to change the people around me. And those people are going to go out and change the people around them and so on and so forth. And I think that that's really the one thing that really sticks with me and drives me. And it's sort of that North Star for myself.
Mhm.
Years ago, when I did a lot of public speaking, I used to teach on something that I thought I invented, but you've been using this whole time. We, and it was we called it the cycle of success,
Mm-hmm.
and we saw it as here's my purpose and
Mm-hmm.
identifying it, and then our values need to line up with that. If it doesn't,
Yeah.
we're not going to be able to express it. And then the next step is beliefs need to line up with our values. You already talked about that with mindset and whatever. And out of purpose and values and beliefs, then the strategies and systems and processes will come.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the action will come
Mm-hmm.
out of that because everything is aligned, and ultimately acknowledgement. So we called it the cycle of
Yeah.
success: purpose,
Absolutely.
values, beliefs, strategy, action, and acknowledgement. Many times we
Mm-hmm.
forget that acknowledgement part, and you are one of the first I've heard talk about that, that you got to stop and look how far you come. You got to acknowledge it
Yeah.
to keep that momentum going. We're going to get right on top of the hour here. Thank you, Julie. Loved having you on our podcast today. Hopefully you can come back. Hopefully we can stay in touch.
Absolutely.
So one more time, tell people about your new book and where they can learn more about your book, your coaching practice, how they might get hold of you.
Well, thank you again for having me, ladies. It's been really fun to talk about, and especially talking about those 7 ingredients of success: the passion, discipline, persistence, vision, clear goals,
Yeah.
continuous learning, positive mindset, and action and commitment. I just did an episode on that, so that's why it's so easy. But the book is Confident You, Raw Conversations, and both of my books are Confident You, but one is Simple Habits to Live the Life You Have Imagined, and the other one is The Raw Conversation, which is the collaboration. You
The
can find
collaboration.
everything, Julie, at goconfidentlycoaching.com. And again, all my resources, free gifts, etc., everything is on the website.
Wow. Thank you. Tracy, I'm going to punt it over to you for your final thoughts.
Yeah, I
Uh,
feel so inspired and motivated, Rebecca. I know you do too.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, Julie, something hit me a little while ago. I was thinking, like, you're like the wind, even though a lot of these ideas, right? They're not necessarily new. Like the wind isn't new,
Not
but the way
right.
it hits you is new. It's
Oh, that's
always
beautiful.
refreshing. And that's what it reminded me of. Like you're like the wind. Like some of these ideas aren't new, but you have such a refreshing way of delivering them that
Yes.
they just kind of like come at me. And I feel like
Oh, I love
Rebecca
that.
said she feels like stress free and uplifted.
Yeah.
And I feel like, hey, maybe some of these things I've been wanting to delegate for a long time, I can just delegate and it'll be so simple. Why am I overthinking this? Right. So
Mm,
thank you for that fresh new approach that you have. I love the way you deliver all of these concepts and good luck with your book. Do you have a
thank
copy of
you.
it that you could like hold it up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Here is the beautiful book,
it's so
and I have to
pretty.
give credit to to handsome hot husband. He designed the cover, so
He did a
Hey,
good job. It's
husband.
very
and the
nice.
back of the book too as well. And what is
Beautiful.
really fun about the book, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, the collaborators we made it colored
Um,
as well, so
that's
that people can. It's good because it's a book. It's a big book, but
great.
I like color in my life, so you can go and check out all these individual wonderful women, and you can find them through my website as well.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you, Julie.
Thank you.
And thank you, Tracy. And thank you to our audience listening in today. Make sure to comment, share, like, subscribe. And of course, we'll see you next week on another episode of the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged.